Alright then, obviously with regards to execution, methodology for the hiding behind the elephant strategy. Firstly, obviously our entry point is passive in nature. We don't want to be aggressive simply because we're going for a relatively small winner. Obviously then do note our stop placement, slightly behind the elephant with the base of the reversal. Our target, like I said, a little bit smaller. This is a bit of a scalp type strategy. We're looking for a logical target, something like maybe a fill of the imbalance, or something a little bit smaller. So just try and find something that's a bit of an obvious type target, but again, always keep in the back of your mind that elephant's likely left a bad low and is likely going to revisit it. So just factor that in to the equation. In terms of risk reward, obviously because we're managing the risk, quite tight stop, we have got relatively good reward metrics. Okay, application, we're going to be very exact here in process. We can't really afford to gamble over prices. Why? If we're risking, say, 3 prices to make 10 to 15 prices, okay, there's not a great deal of wiggle room there in which we can't be exact. So it's a very exact application in terms of execution. No need to preempt. In terms of leverage, we don't leverage on this. We don't even consider leveraging. We simply just take the increment out of the market. Now, in terms of a scalp, I always like to think of a scalp as nicking ticks. Okay, that's why a lot of our traders scalp the markets. Obviously, we like the big moves. We like to get on the big moves, the big breakouts, etc. But when the markets present you with a scalp opportunity with a high probability, we're going to nick those ticks effectively, and so should you. Okay, in terms of the tip for this strategy, learn what is large absorption in the market. We spoke about this quite extensively in the strategy. If you know what large absorption is, you'll know when there's an elephant in the market, and you'll be able to take advantage and nick some ticks. Now again, another one of my favorite books, The Obstacle is the Way. I think the title gives it away. What this book goes about is finding numerous obstacles and showing how within every single one of these obstacles, i.e. failures, i.e. difficult moments, there is always a way forward. Okay, and it's that understanding, that principle understanding that this book is all about. Now, note Ryan Holiday is the author. He's written a number of books. One of them, which is very popular, and we will talk about this later on in the additional reading, is The Ego is the Enemy. So in terms of a summary, this book ultimately transforms obstacles into opportunities. So it's just a mindset shift in essence. Okay, it shows you how most people think of obstacles as bad things. They think of them as, how am I going to get through this, etc., etc. But Ryan Holiday tries to dispel that and make you realize that every time there is an obstacle, through a little bit of a mindset shift, you can ultimately establish a very, very good opportunity from every one of the obstacles. Okay, in terms of action, again, this is very thought-provoking, and it's going to want you to adjust the way you think about obstacles in general. Now, some of the key highlights. Again, another process like we saw in Ray Dalio, obviously a step-for-step process to identify the opportunity in an obstacle. Okay, and this is key because sometimes, we can't always see the potential opportunity until much later on. So, nice step-for-step process. Note, obviously, it's going to show you how to manage difficult situations through a process of marginalizing. Okay, so breaking down obstacles into very small margins, into very small segments, is ultimately going to show you how to, get through obstacles. Then shift your mindset to accepting obstacles and aligning focus and energy accordingly. So in other words, rather than getting your back up with the obstacle, rather focus your energy on getting through it and getting beyond it. Then obviously the journey through a tough situation is ultimately what real growth is about. So he goes on then to focus on how, every time we do have an obstacle, ultimately we're growing from it. Okay, and then obviously all about failures. Again, we saw this in Ray Dalio. We can see this in most of the books, which is the principle of learning from your failures, learning the lessons from your failures. You're going to see me talk about this through numerous strategies. Most of the strategies I've learned throughout my career have come from initial failures. All right, that is then obviously the second book I would recommend for additional reading. Okay, we've come then to the end of Unit 7. This is the end of obviously Strategy 2. What I am going to say is obviously, again, you've been through this how to complete the drill process. Note, watch the drill in its entirety. Again, complete the template by yourself. Once you've completed that template, then go and watch the guided tuition. That's just to ensure that you are, gaining and growing in your own way with completing the template. Do note, obviously, you can see some stars there. What that's showing us is that the practical example, the drill example, will be the same one utilized in this unit. So you're going to go over the same example this time on your own. And obviously note, once you have completed your own template, compare notes to the guided tuition, make adjustments accordingly. And again, once you have confidence in your understanding and you're ready to then move on to the next unit, then do so. Now, do bear in mind at the end of every one of these units, you have got a day off. Utilize that day off. Make sure that you go focus on those drills and those principles and make the most of the day off. Obviously, then we finish off with our quote: "The guy who wins the race is often the one who does the least amount of work." Okay, this is so true. We see this time and time again, with all of our traders at Axia, our best, most established traders. It sometimes appears as though they work the least, but they're actually just working the smartest.